It's a beautiful autumn day. We've had some fun today, and that hasn't been in a veggie garden. We've been hedging. We've been spending time on our ligustrum here, which is not my favourite plant, but one of the fastest growing, and it serves a purpose. It does a great hedge if you maintain it, and we needed to because it was getting out of hand. You can see we've pruned that. We haven't finished our English box, so don't judge that yet. And what I'm looking up here is our black locust. Beautiful tree when it's in full flight, and it's beautiful white flowers. But the topic today, a lot of you have been asking me about irrigation. Now, how do I irrigate my garden? Well, simply saying, drip system is what I use. I've probably rolled out close to 10 kilometres of irrigation on the property here because you can't physically water everything. Come along. Now, this hasn't been installed properly, but I've just laid it out there because it does work. Now, the purpose of a drip system, this is just one of many examples I'm going to show you. It drips 2 litres up to 2 litres per hour per hole. They're regulated. There's a filter on them, so they're not designed, well, they're designed not to block. And if you do get any blockage, all you got to do is open up the end of the pipe, which basically runs all the way around here. Have a look down there. Yeah, I just use a bit of wire because I've got so many joints to doing all that. Take the end, open the end up there, and then turn the water on and let it flush through for a few seconds, maybe a minute or so, and that way you flush out any sediments that may be caught up inside. But you can put a filter at the beginning where the tap is. Now, this drip system, where it drips into the earth, so cross profile, a cross section of the earth, so that's our soil, let's say, it drips down there. Now, it only comes into one spot, as you would see when it comes through. Have a look. Better way to do it is down here. It'll drip from here into the earth. Now, this part here, which is our earth, acts like a sponge. So as it starts to hydrate, imagine a dry sponge. When you start dripping water onto it, it starts to spread, it dissipates. That's the same theory and practice of what happens with the earth. So you don't need to hydrate the entire area. If you've got a large root system, you can actually run a pipe on one side of the plant and then another pipe on the other side, about 60 centimeters apart, and that way you capture the entire surface that you need to hydrate, because the water will go down and then spread out as it starts to hydrate. It doesn't just sit there, and because you're not putting a lot of pressure or adding the water with a lot of pressure as you would with a hose, it doesn't run off. It actually soaks in slowly into the earth. Now, this is English box, ligustrum, lovely, lovely, lovely. A lot of fun if you like hedging. We're going to walk out to the veggie garden where I've got some irrigation running there, and what I want to tell you there about is how deep to lay the irrigation. Now, you saw that one there, it was on the surface of the garden, basically under the plants there, but you need to actually put it below your mulch. And remember, we're on 20 acres here, right? There's only me, myself and my son. We're doing everything on our own. You know, they say there are rich people who've got gardeners, and there are gardeners who've got rich gardens. And that's what we are, basically. So we spend a lot of time in our garden looking after it. Now, here, this is the bed the other day I showed you, and I told you I started planting my lettuce out there and all that sort of stuff, and I was looking for my irrigation. Well, it's just below the mulch. It's sitting on top of the soil in this case here. Look at that. It's just below the mulch on top of the soil. You need to hide it because you don't want the soil exposed to the sun, because it'll dehydrate it straight away as soon as it gets windy or the sun comes out and things like that. And the mulch acts like a blanket on top. Now, this is going to be a no-dig garden. The aim is there to do very minimal digging if I need to, and just keep layering it. So eventually that actual irrigation pipe is not going to be just below the surface. It'll be about 100, maybe 200 maximum below the surface. If I go any more than that, it'll be too far down for the irrigation to work for the plants. That is, for the root system to be able to absorb the moisture. So I may have to lift it up before I start layering it again. Now, that's our veggie garden. No, we might go over there or there. We'll go to the orchard. What do you reckon? The orchard? You want to? All right, let's go to the orchard. Come. I just said before that you shouldn't have your irrigation sitting on the surface, and what I'm going to show you here is exactly the opposite. What it's doing, it's actually sitting on the surface. Now, these are young trees. They were planted last winter. Yeah, they're a year old in the ground now, pretty much, and they've done pretty well. I've only lost, out of 120 trees, I think 1 or 2. one pomegranate. That's it. I lost one pomegranate. It just never took off. Everything else has taken off well. Now have a look at this. One line, because the root system is small, and what I've done here by having it like this is that the roots will grow in all directions, but predominantly where the drip line is itself, so where the hydration is going in the ground there. So you'll get elongated roots as well. So if I was to dig this up, guaranteed the roots won't be going out here where it's dry and barren. It'll actually be growing out in this direction, which is fine. Now with the trees, because they have got a good big root system on them, I can bury this irrigation. So my next task here is to give it a slash with a brush cutter, a light herbicide spray with a slasher, which is an organic herbicide, and then start composting. Put some pea straw down, put some compost on top of this, so the whole row here is sitting under moss. So we start building the organic matter in this. That's vital for these trees. It's okay for the first year while they're young, but before springtime comes along, all these beds here, all these rows need to be composted and mulched, and the irrigation will stay below there because the roots are far down below, and that's fine. We don't need to hydrate any higher than that. And then down the middle, because they're only about 5 meters apart or thereabout, we're going to put another row down the middle here with berries, and the same thing. Actually, I did start it over there. Look at this. These are raspberries. I only had 4 or 5 of them. Yeah, they're lost because we haven't finished mowing because we were too busy hedging today. But we'll come back here and mow. As you can see here, look at these raspberries. So there's irrigation here as well. Yeah, challenged by the roots of the grass and all things like that, but if you hydrate them well, sorry, just spotted a tomato, a rogue tomato, really, out of, oh, anyway, that's what happens here. Come to see Vasily and you'll see tomatoes growing everywhere. Irrigate your garden. Drip system is about the best way you can do it, so you're saving yourself water, you're not overspraying, you're not evaporating it, you're not losing water or wetting the plant. It's plants, that is, that's going straight to the roots where it belongs, and that way you conserve on the water, you hydrate the soil and feed the microbes at the same time. From me, Vasily, Baresi.